really very distinguished attendees here. So I'm going to be talking about AI for social good. I lead the Center for AI for Social Good essentially at Harvard. And now we are starting a similar effort here at Google India Research Center. And so I hope to collaborate with PAC and with others in order to push this agenda forward. So with the current progress in AI and multi-agent systems, which is my particular subfield within AI, it is now important to direct these advances towards societal benefits. In my work, I focused on three areas: public safety and security, conservation, and public health. In all of these areas, there's a key research problem that we focus on: how to optimize our limited intervention resources when interacting with other agents in these domains. And that's where this multi-agent perspective becomes important. And so I focused on this idea of using multi-agent systems reasoning, particularly this idea of game theory, and also the idea of end-to-end data to deployment systems. So basically saying that we want to go all the way to deploying the solutions we have. So let's start with public safety and security. We have a large number of targets to protect, limited security resources, how to schedule or plan our resources taking into account a watchful adversary. We've contributed a new model called Stackelberg Security Games and developed algorithms that have been in use by security agencies in the United States and internationally. With respect to conservation, we have large conservation areas to protect, limited ranger resources. Here we've contributed a new model called Green Security Games. So concrete example is work that we've been doing in Uganda. Taking into account past poaching data, we are able to predict where poachers will set snares and remove them before they kill animals. And we are extending these models towards combating illegal fishing and illegal logging. In the area of public health, we have limited number of public health workers or social workers. So how to optimize the use of these limited resources? Concrete example is work we have done with homeless shelters in Los Angeles to spread information about HIV amongst homeless youth. We are able to show that our AI algorithms are far more effective in picking the peer leaders, the messengers, in order to spread this information compared to traditional approaches. We are now extending some of these ideas towards combating tuberculosis in collaboration with Mumbai Municipal Corporation and with other public health challenges like obesity prevention, suicide prevention, and others. In all of this work, interdisciplinary partnerships are important. And to that end, we've really patrolled with the US Coast Guard on their boats in the ports in New York. We've really patrolled with the World Wildlife Fund or Wildlife Conservation Society rangers in forests. Our students have spent time in homeless shelters, talking to homeless shelter officials. And the immersion here is important in order to understand what problems are we truly trying to solve. And we don't want to sit in our ivory towers and present solutions. Based on the data collected, the next step then is to use machine learning models to make predictions about which cases are high risk and which may be low risk cases. Following that, we want to then prescribe particular interventions. This is where, because we have limited resources, we can't intervene on all the high-risk cases. So which cases should we truly intervene on? But the signature of this work on social good is that we don't want to stop here and say we've written a paper, we're done with this work. We really want to field test and deploy whatever innovations we have, understand what weaknesses they may reveal about our models and algorithms, and improve these models, but at the same time, hopefully achieve social impact. So in the rest of the presentation, I will talk about the work we've done in the three areas: public safety, conservation, and public health. I'll skip through some of the technical details since we have limited time. Now, all of this work has been published in top AI conferences. These are conferences called ICHKA, Triple AI, AMAS, and so forth. The point being that this is AI research that is recognized at the highest levels in terms of its quality. So in doing this social good work, we are not compromising on the quality of the AI research that we are doing. If you are interested, there are these edited books that you can buy. If you buy copies of these books, then from the royalties, I can take my students out to a nice dinner. So I hope you do buy them. But really, I want to thank my PhD students and postdocs who have contributed to the work. So on the top right-hand corner of some of the slides, you'll see images of the students who have done the work, whose work I'll present today. So let's start with public safety and security. So this is clearly a global challenge. In the United States, the events of 9/11 were clearly devastating for all of us. I've grown up in Mumbai, and clearly Mumbai has been attacked repeatedly in the past. So for example, 11 July 2006, bombs went off on trains in Mumbai. My mother was actually traveling on one of these trains. Luckily, she got off the train just before the bombs went off. But these kinds of events led me to think about public safety and security as a key challenge. At the time, I was in Los Angeles, and so the chief of airport police approached me to improve security at the LAX airport. His concern was somebody driving a suicide truck into one of the terminals, as happened in Glasgow in 2007. So the question was, 8 inbound roads into the airport, 8 terminals, where and when to schedule checkpoints, where and when to put K9 patrols. The question for me was, can I propose the use of game theory as a way of optimizing limited resources? Can we convince the scientific advisory committees that this was the right approach? Can we convince our AI reviewers that this was the right approach? And can we convince the sergeants on the ground that this was the right approach? But that's what we decided to do. And we proposed a new model called Stackelberg Security Games. And allow me to just explain the details a little bit here. And this is the only model where I'll go into some of the details. And then later on, in the interest of time, I'll continue to move forward more quickly. So imagine that we have a small airport with 2 terminals. LAX is much larger, but let's suppose we have 2 terminals and we have only 1 police unit. So the police could always try to protect Terminal 1. If that happens, an adversary conducting surveillance will attack Terminal 2. The adversary gets a positive reward of 1. The police get a negative reward -1. If the police were to switch and always protect Terminal 2, an adversary conducting surveillance will attack Terminal 1. So any deterministic strategy, the adversary could defeat. Instead, if the police were to use a randomized strategy, a mixed strategy, 60% of the time they're at Terminal 1, 40% at Terminal 2, an adversary conducting surveillance will only know that the police are there 60%, here 40%. What they'll do tomorrow remains unpredictable. These kinds of games are called Stackelberg games in the sense that the defender commits first, the police are out in the open patrolling, the adversary gets to observe and then respond. But we are randomizing the patrols that are being conducted. Now the police already know the randomization is important, but we are going to put more systematicity on how to randomize. These are security games that are played on targets where payoffs are based on whether targets are protected or not. And we are not claiming 100% security because in the real world there is no such thing. We are optimizing the use of limited resources. So this is how we built this armor system for the LAX airport. We start with a game matrix that feeds into a mixed integer program. That's our contribution. Out comes a schedule in the end, basically, that says at 8 a.m., send team 1 to terminal 2, team 3 to terminal 5, team 5 to terminal 6. At 9 a.m., send team 1 to terminal 3, team 2 to terminal 4, and so forth. All of this comes out of figuring out, by solving the game, what is the right probability of putting different units at different terminals. So this was the first such use of computational game theory for operational security. And this started working at the LAX airport in 2007. Soon thereafter, they started catching weapons. So this January of 2009, all of these guns got captured. This led the police department, of course, to be happy with the results. But somebody at the LA City Hall was also thrilled with the results because we were very honored to receive commendations from the city of Los Angeles. That's me and my students. Errol Southers went to United States. Thank you. And Errol Southers went to United
LAX
States
is safer
Congress
today
to
than it
talk
was
about our
18
work.
months
I don't know
ago.
if the sound will
A team of
play,
research led by
but
Dr. Milind
this was his
Tambe
testimony talking about
worked with our department to develop armor. This software randomizes our vehicle checkpoints along airport access roads, and
let me just play this from the beginning.
LAX is safer today than it was 18 months ago. A team of research led by Dr. Milind Tambe worked with our department to develop armor. This software randomizes our vehicle checkpoints along airport access roads and the deployment of our explosives detection canine teams throughout the airport.
Following that, there were news coverage, Newsweek saying armor throws a digital cloak of invisibility, which led my colleagues at the next conference to ask me if I was working on a cloaking device. But this got the attention of the federal air marshals, how to assign air marshals to flights. With thousands of flights, and not every flight can have an air marshal, this is a massive, massive problem. That's 10 to the power 41 different combinations of assigning air marshals to flights. So we solved this problem and developed a system called IRIS to assign air marshals to flights. If you've been on a US air carrier, United, Delta, American, whether there was an air marshal or not on your flight would have been decided by this program. And again, we were very honored to have our work mentioned in the United States Congress and receive a certificate of appreciation from the federal air marshals. We developed another system called Protect for generating patrols for the United States Coast Guard in different ports like Boston and Los Angeles and New York, around the Staten Island Ferry in New York, which completely changed the way the Coast Guard did these patrols. Again, we were honored to receive commendations from the Coast Guard, and again, a mention in the United States Congress.
We're working with the University of Southern California to utilize game theory as a way of optimizing and scheduling our patrol. Makes it harder for somebody to anticipate where the patrols will be.
So this is use of game theoretic randomization to generate different kinds of patrols and completely changing the way these patrols get operated. As was discussed, it is important to measure performance in the field. So how do you measure performance in the field of events that are rare? So the idea was, can we use game theory to do something else where there's lots of incidents and we can measure performance. So therefore, we had LA Sheriff's Department use game theoretic patrols to catch people traveling without tickets on trains in Los Angeles. And we gave them, we sent one unit without our game theoretic patrols and one with, and roughly at the identical times, and tried to measure who did better. And in the end, it turned out that the game theoretic patrols led to 60% more captures of people traveling without tickets. There's also increase in the number of firearms and drugs and so forth captured at the LAX airport after armor was inserted. There's many other such results that we have. I wouldn't have time to go through all of this, mainly to say that we measured the performance of the systems we've deployed. In the interest of time, let me move on to wildlife protection as the next piece of work. So this was work done in Uganda. This is Murchison Falls National Park in Uganda, which I visited. There's wonderful wildlife there, but there's threats to this wildlife. Traps or snares that are used to maim and kill animals in large numbers. Thousands of such snares are kept in the park in order to kill these animals. So to protect these parks, we developed a new model. So we take Queen Elizabeth National Park, divide it into 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid square. And now we are trying to combat these boundedly rational poachers. That is to say, we are trying to predict for each grid square what is the probability of finding a snare there. So given past patrol data in that grid square, other features of that grid square, can we predict whether we will find a snare there or not? And with thousands of square kilometers, you can imagine trying to find those grid squares is difficult. But that's the idea, and then we can optimize the patrols. So given we have 12 years of data from Uganda, range of patrol frequency, animal density, distances to roads and rivers for each grid square. And then to test this in the field, we were given this challenge of locating, so these are 2 9 square kilometer areas. This is the first trial we did. These are areas that were not patrolled before or very infrequently patrolled. These are not previous hotspots. So we are asking rangers to go to these areas which are shown by these green dots. They do not overlap with the red dots where previously snares were found by rangers. These green dots are not areas that have been patrolled frequently before or not at all. And now we ask them, go there and you are going to find snares. And I asked my students to do this work and then do it 1 month before a conference deadline. If we find snares, we'll be able to write a paper. If there's no snares, there will not be a paper. And then the rangers went out, and every day they would go and report to us whether they found snares or not. And so for many days, nothing happened. Then a report of a poached elephant with its tusks cut off. We had asked with our machine learning system to get the rangers to the right place because at least we found this poached elephant, but we're too late for this elephant. But then came the news of this whole elephant snare roll being found and removed. So we had asked rangers to go to locations. Poachers were active in these areas, but before they could kill the next set of elephants, we had removed this elephant snare roll. And then following that, a whole antelope set of snare rolls for antelopes were removed. And there's a lot of details in our papers on the capture rates and so forth. But the main point is this started increasing confidence in the machine learning approach in order to remove these snares. To do a further study, we set up these 24 areas in Queen Elizabeth and Murchison Falls National Park. Our machine learning model predicted some of these to be high risk where more snares will be found. Some will be low risk, less number of snares will be found. And we sent rangers out for 6 months trying to look for snares in these parks. Of course, the rangers did not know which our model had predicted to be high risk versus low risk. The question was, are our predictions accurate? And again, these were areas that were infrequently patrolled. And it turned out where we predicted high risk, more snares are found. Where we predicted low risk, less snares were found. And then this has continued even in Murchison Falls. Our predictions have been accurate. So now the wildlife conservation agencies have got a lot of confidence in these methods, but it is my belief that we should continue to stress test these machine learning algorithms. So recent work has been in Sripak Wildlife Sanctuary in Cambodia, where tigers are going to be reintroduced because they've been decimated from this country. And so we just visited it in the spring of 2019. So these are my pictures from the visit. This is a gentleman who was a Khmer Rouge soldier who has become a ranger, other arrests of poachers and so on. Again, we made predictions. These are pictures of snares that have been removed. Predictions have been accurate in the process. The numbers of snare captures have jumped 5-fold from 2018 to now in 2019. So Rohit Singh, who's the head of WWF Cambodia, is actually the head of World Wildlife Poaching, Zero Poaching effort. He's telling me, I'm super excited with these results. Let's get going with other countries too this year. And so in collaboration with SMART, which is a collaboration of World Wildlife Fund, Wildlife Conservation Society, other NGOs, Microsoft's AI for Earth, we are now taking our software worldwide to hundreds of national parks around the globe. So this is an effort that is moving forward. And indeed, we'll start rolling out this software beginning next year. And so this, we also want to protect fisheries and so forth. So far I've talked to you about using predictions from past data towards the future. More recent work has been trying to do things in the field in terms of real-time information. So there's an NGO called Air Shepherd. They fly drones in South Africa in the Kruger National Park, and they take infrared video at night, and then they send it to a van where there's a human being looking at these infrared videos trying to find a poacher. But if you look at those black and white pictures, it's very hard to find a human being in those black and white pictures. So we built a system called Spot to automatically find poachers from those pictures. So you're trying to find human beings from the infrared video. So we did that. We've developed this system called Spot. We've delivered it, and it's being tested in the Kruger National Park today. So let me turn to public health as the third challenge that we focused on. And here I just quickly want to go through two examples. There are many others that we've worked on. HIV prevention is a major challenge in Los Angeles. The rates of HIV amongst homeless youth are 10 times the rates of normal house population. There's 6,000 homeless youth who sleep on the streets of LA. So the homeless shelters run these public health campaigns where they'll tell peer leaders about HIV. The idea is that word of mouth, the peer leaders will talk to their friends will talk to their friends, and information about HIV will spread in the social network. The question is, of course, which peer leaders do you select? And so this is, by the way, real social network, face-to-face. This is not Facebook social networks. These youth don't have access to Facebook and so forth. So this is a problem in computer science called influence maximization. Given a social network, can you pick the right people in order to spread information? And so we have given this graph G, we are trying to select K nodes in the graph to be the peer leaders. So we've built a new algorithm. So the way the information spreads is that if you tell youth A about HIV testing, there's some chance they'll tell their friend B there's HIV testing, and then both will get tested for HIV. Of course, in the real world, we found that information spread is uncertain. So we developed a new algorithm to spread this information. Then we did a test in the real world. So this is, we recruited 60 youth in two of our algorithm is called Healer. So we recruited 60 youth under two versions of Healer, and 60 youth with degree centrality, which is the former method, which is bring in the most popular youth. And then we selected 12 peer leaders. With the Healer, our algorithm chose peer leaders. With degree centrality, which is bring in the most popular youth, this is the traditional approach, doesn't use an algorithm. The question is, at the end of the day, after we selected the peer leaders, our social work colleagues educated them about HIV. Then after a month, we said, who spread more information? Was it our algorithm that caused more information to be spread, or was the traditional method led to more information to be spread? And conclusion was that the AI algorithms are far more effective in spreading information. Among the non-peer leaders, the people we did not bring in to educate about HIV, 75% got educated about HIV using our algorithm, so they got informed about HIV, and only 25% without our algorithm. Okay, so they got informed about HIV, but did they actually change behavior? And what we find is that where our algorithms were used, 30 to 40% youth started testing for HIV, where the traditional methods were used. In fact, none of them started testing for HIV because a small population got informed in the first place. So not only is information spreading, but actually behavior is changing as well. And so this has led our colleagues in the social work field to be very happy with the results. I'm going to play a video next.
Beautiful way to kind of like marry this tech world with this social service world, like, and how we can kind of go deeper and impact young people and elevate them.
If this group became a really big thing, it could really help out a lot of youth.
So today we have completed a study with 900 youth, and we'll be soon publishing these results from these 3 different homeless shelters. The last bit I wanted to talk about is TB prevention in India. I don't need to tell you that this is a devastating disease. 500,000 of us die every year due to tuberculosis. There's 3 million people who get infected by TB. And so one problem we focused on is non-adherence to TB treatment. So essentially people are supposed to take their medicine for 6 months, but they drop off of treatment, which is obviously bad for them and creates drug-resistant bacteria. So there's around the world this idea of digital adherence tracking. So behind the flap of each pill, there is a number, and people are supposed to call that number to say, I took my medicine today. Health officers, health officials get a track, they get to see who's called each day, and based on that, if somebody has not called for 3-4 days, then they can say, okay, I need to call them, or I need to go to their home and tell them, why haven't you taken your medicine? So we met with health workers in Mumbai, and it seems like one person has a caseload of something like 50 to 100 people. And so they have to track these 50 to 100 people. And so if we can predict in advance who's a high risk, who are the high risk patients, then they may be able to track those patients more effectively. So just by looking at the call patterns, so if I call today at 11, tomorrow at 3 p.m., on Wednesday at 4 p.m., and so on and so forth, can I predict that I'm a person who's going to drop off of treatment? So that's what we've done. So essentially we had as a test phone logs from Mumbai, 15,000 patients, 1.5 million calls. And here's what we are trying to do. Look at these 4 patients. Patient 1 didn't call on day 1, but called other 2 days, all 4 days. Patient 2 didn't call on day 1, day 2, didn't call on day 3, and didn't call on day 5, and so forth. By looking at their call patterns, if we can predict that these 2 patients are high risk and the other 2 are not, meaning the high risk patients are going to drop off of treatment, then we can get the health officials to focus only on those 2 patients. And so that's what we have done. And then we can get them to focus on some of these patients for intervention. So we have shown that, in fact, our method manages to improve prediction of high-risk patients compared to their rule-based approach that they have, and improve true positive rate and reduce the false positive rate. So Bill Tees, who's a co-founder of EverWealth Health Solutions, which is active in trying to do this, told us that this work has a lot of potential to save lives. And so we are hoping to trial this approach in Mumbai, and hopefully this will get adopted in Mumbai and other places. So I'll come to the end of my presentation by saying that I see AI as having tremendous potential for social good, for improving society and fighting social injustice. And to that end, it's vital to bring AI to those who have not benefited from it in the global south, and to embrace interdisciplinary work with social workers, with conservation. And in terms of AI researchers, this is a call to action in terms of stepping out of our labs and into the field. And this is what I intend to do here with setting up this AI for social good effort at Google Research India, is to start projects where we will have AI researchers going out into the field with interdisciplinary efforts in mind, with public health, conservation, and education as 3 areas of priority. So thank you for listening to me. This has really been a great honor, and hopefully this information is of some use as we collaborate in the future. Thank you.